Hi students, today I have as my very special guest the Director of Youthlaw here in Victoria, Ariel Couchman. Ariel, thanks for joining me.
You're welcome.
So Ariel, can you tell our students a little bit about Youthlaw, what it actually does?
We're a statewide legal centre. We're for under 25-year-olds. We fill a gap which presently is where people can't get, they can't afford assistance very often if they're a young person, but also now legal aid guidelines have tightened a lot, so they often don't get representation even in criminal matters, which could have serious consequences for their life. And we also apply a kind of practice that is very youth friendly, and we really try to address underlying issues, and so we employ social workers. We've got one and we're about to employ a second one because we increasingly and we work with lots of youth services and non-legal services, headspace centres, because we believe that it's not always just a legal problem. Usually there's a lot of underlying stuff, particularly criminal offending. We very much hold the view, and all the research supports it, that criminal offending is generally driven by things that have gone on in people's early lives and trauma.
So you're a real multidisciplinary practice in effect.
Yeah, we've sort of organically grown into it, responding to the needs of the clients.
What sort of cases, can you give students an example of the types of cases that you actually deal with?
Yeah, look, we've developed a big practice now in family violence because it's emerging as a big issue. A lot of young people have grown up with family violence, and it's also presenting in their relationships. So we have a lawyer who gives them all the legal options, which, as we know, they're a little bit blunt at times, don't always deal with the situation. Also, the lawyer can deal with a lot of the related issues, often co-tenancy and debts and all that kind of stuff. But then we have our social worker who's fantastic. She goes in there and she does risk assessment and planning for the young person so they can work out how to be safe and what might make them safe. She links them into housing and counselling services. So that kind of approach where the lawyer and the social worker work together is so kind of great for the young person. Sure. They don't have to go to other services. We know with young people that if you refer them somewhere, they don't really want to go somewhere else, and they often don't turn up because they don't know those people. So it's much better to have it where they come to you and to have it together.
So you're dealing with a lot of young people who are in effect disadvantaged, come from disadvantaged backgrounds, they're disenfranchised or feel disenfranchised, and you're trying to deal with their issues in a holistic way. What sort of qualities and skills are you looking for in people who you employ at Youthlaw to look after this clientele?
Yeah, many years ago we actually asked young people in sort of groups, what did they want out of a lawyer, and the two standouts were they wanted lawyers who know what they're doing, so they want them to have expertise, good skills, legal skills, but they also want them not to patronise them. They want them to explain things to them, not sort of give them sort of simple little bits of information because they're young people. So I think in all the feedback we get from clients, one of the things that really stands out for me is that clients often speak about how Youthlaw really cares about them. They really follow through. They get, they really stand up for them in court. We get really good, non-conviction sort of orders often, which just enable them to get on with their lives. And young people really like the fact that they go that extra mile for them, and that they link them in with other services, work with other services, and they look pretty kind of cool and youthful.
Good, so you're looking for cool and youthful people. That rules me out. So in relation to our students, Youthlaw is now co-located with the Centre for Innovative Justice here at RMIT, and you're prepared to take our students to give them a clinical legal education experience, whether they be law students, social work students. What sort of qualities are you looking for in those students that you're prepared to take?
Yeah, look, I think my experience over almost 10 years now is that people can come in with very little knowledge about these young people, but once you get to know what's going on for them, it's an education in itself. So I would really encourage anyone who's maybe even thinking they're going to go and be a corporate lawyer or something, come and give us a try, because what I find is that we get private lawyers from many private firms helping out, and they just are really They learn so much about these young people, and then they become so passionate about helping them. And I think you don't need to have necessarily experience, although a lot of people who want to come and volunteer often do know of people in their families and who've struggled in life early on and maybe got in trouble with the law. And that often is a good motivation, but you don't have to have that. We're looking for students also who are really, reliable and responsible, want to learn, non-judgmental, open to just sitting around the office, listening to the lawyers, listening to social workers, hearing all our advocacy to try and change the law. I think it can apply to a lot of different students, and it doesn't have to be law students. We actually take non-law students who are interested, because increasingly we are working in this kind of multidisciplinary kind of practice.
And you spoke about advocacy and the fact that Youthlaw also advocates for law changes.
Yeah.
If there are one or two changes that you could make to better assist young people who come into contact with the justice system, what would they be?
Yeah, well, I asked Anna, our principal lawyer, she said close down Parkville, but probably not going to get that one. She just thinks we're increasingly just jailing, and it's just not an effective way to deal with young people's, crimes. Tiffany would love to see age of criminal responsibility increased, and deal with, anybody under 14 basically as, that they're offending for a reason. Personally, I really think that what's needed is earlier on in the system. I think the service system needs to improve so that there's really comprehensive and high quality assessments of young people who start to become interact with the system, even earlier at school when their behaviour might lead to them being expelled or them leaving school. We just don't have the service system there where they're being identified and assessed and then given all the kind of services and treatments that they need. I think so many people, you talk to anyone in the juvenile justice system, particularly in the detention system, and they say, look, 99% of the young people in here have got a disability, mental health issues, and so often undiagnosed.
So you think much earlier intervention would be of assistance?
Yeah.
And finally, for our students, if you were to give them one or two bits of advice, they're watching this, they're not sure where their career is going to go, they're now thinking of coming to volunteer or get a clinical education experience at Youthlaw, and you're a lawyer yourself, you've been practicing for quite some time, what one or two bits of advice based on your experience would you give our students now?
Okay, so I think that that it's really important to go out there and get really solid, good legal practice experience. I would encourage you don't discourage you from going to those big firms or what you consider might be, not human sort of responsive kind of legal firms. I think, you get lots of really good skills which will then be good for you in any kind of arena. But look, I think definitely consider community law, legal aid law as an area where you can just, be very, you can develop really great skills beyond your immediate legal skills, and you can really make a difference. That's, I think, what I'd really impart on you, and give it a go. And you can always, these days, you're going to have probably 6 or 7 careers in your life, possibly all through the law, but there's so many different things you can do.
Well, that's great advice, students. Get as much experience as you can, because the experience that you do have in your formative years after being admitted or during your law course can hold you in good stead right throughout your legal career. So, Ariel, can I say thanks very much for joining us?